to do that. It doesn't actually have to be used as a currency, as money. It could just be a reserve asset. It could just be held like gold. But I don't think that can happen either. I mean, can it happen in the short period of time? Sure, anything can be possible in the short run, but can it persist in that function over the long term? I don't think so. But how many years? I mean, if in 20 or 30 years, I mean, Bitcoin has served that function and it has ridden out various economic cycles. And even though it hasn't been money, I mean, if it is held as a reserve asset by pension funds, by endowments, I mean, if it is more widespread and mainstream, I mean, if central banks actually have Bitcoin reserves that they're now reporting as part of their official reserves, and it's possible that I would have to concede that Bitcoin was able to succeed in accomplishing that, but right now it hasn't. And so I think the onus is on the people who have been saying that's going to happen. It hasn't. Why hasn't it happened? Right? If you're so sure that that's going to happen, I mean, you're asking me to, to concede something that hasn't happened. To me, the onus is on Bitcoin to prove that it can do that, not me to prove that it can't, because so far it hasn't. Yes, so far the price has gone up because you have a bunch of hodlers that refuse to sell, and you have speculators that are still buying. But none of what people are betting is going to happen has actually happened. People are still betting on the come. Well, I don't believe what they're betting on is going to actually happen. But that doesn't stop people from placing those bets. Let me see. Where am I here? All right. This is somebody that says, how's this for a libertarian ticket for 2024? Rand Paul and Thomas Massie for president and vice president. Yeah, I mean, that'd be a good ticket. I mean, those are good candidates. Yeah, I mean, I mean, I think that would be good if we could elect those two. And he says me as Fed chairman. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess if I was Fed chairman, I mean, it would be good. Hopefully it would be a short-lived chairmanship because I'd like to end the Fed. And so I would end my role. But there'd be very little for me to do. If we can go back on a gold standard, then there's really not much for a Fed chairman to do. I mean, right now, the role of the Fed is to manipulate money and to facilitate deficit spending and inflate asset bubbles. I don't want to do any of that. So we don't even really need a Fed chairman if we have sound money. It just kind of runs itself. What is the most leveraged way to bet big on gold miners? Well, I mean, gold miners are already a leveraged bet on gold because if gold goes way up in price, then gold stocks will go up a lot more percentage-wise because of the impact that the higher price has on their earnings. Especially if you go from a situation where gold prices go up so much that gold that has no value suddenly has value because it goes from a position where it can't be mined profitably to where it can be mined. So all of a sudden, gold that was worthless on the balance sheet of a mining company now has tremendous value. And that value can be reflected in the share price based on the present value of the future earnings that come from that gold. So it's already leveraged. Now, you can leverage it up even more by borrowing money to buy gold stocks. You can buy gold stocks on margin and lever up a levered bet. I don't advocate that people do that. I think there's enough upside in gold that you don't have to add the extra upside and assume the extra downside of borrowing money to buy it. But of course, if the dollar crashes and gold goes through the roof, the people who are leveraged long will make even more money. The problem is what happens if before the prices go up, they go down. And if you're leveraged and you get a margin call and you can't meet it, then you're forced out of your position and you're not there for the payday. So I don't want to take that chance. I don't want to risk, having to throw away a winning hand. I want that hand there for showdown. So I just think you get plenty of leverage without borrowing money, just owning the gold mining stocks. Somebody's greeting from Germany. Will I make a podcast on the CBDCs? Don't know. We'll see. Stay tuned for my podcast if you want to know. Question from Australia. Yep, I'm having a lot of problems right now down there in Australia, I guess, or the problems are emanating from Australia. I don't know that I'm necessarily having any down there. In Australia, house prices are high, but inflation is coming. What are your thoughts? Look, Australia has been one of the big housing bubbles, you know. So again, I think residential real estate in Australia is expensive. And relative to other things that you can buy, I think it's going to go down. So I don't think it's a good investment, you know. Somebody's asked me, am I still American citizen? Yes, I have, never given up my U.S. citizenship. Everybody who is living in Puerto Rico is a U.S. citizen unless they've immigrated here from another country and they just have a green card or something. But if you're born in Puerto Rico, you are a citizen by birth. There's no difference from that perspective. There is a difference with respect to U.S. inheritance law. Being born in America, you're subject to a different, estate tax than if you're born in the 50 states. But being born in Puerto Rico means that you are an American citizen, just like Americans who are born in any of the 50 states. So, I'm surrounded by American citizens in Puerto Rico, but there is a different political status here because of the fact that we're living in a territory and not a state. But any American who moves to Puerto Rico, enjoys those benefits or lives under that system. And any Puerto Rican who moves to the mainland, now is subject to whatever the rules are in the state that he's in. And they now start paying federal taxes. So if you live in Puerto Rico and you move to Florida, you can now vote for your local representative, for your senator. You can vote for president. And now you start paying federal income taxes. Somebody from Florida who's currently paying federal income taxes, has congressional representation, they can pick up and move to Puerto Rico tomorrow. They no longer have the obligation to pay federal income taxes on the income they earn in Puerto Rico, but they no longer have a representative in Congress that they can vote for, and they can't vote for president. I mean, so it's just, but Americans can move freely back and forth from Puerto Rico to any of the states and be subject to whatever a tax regime and representative, relationship with the U.S. government that they want. Peter, do you still think the housing market will crash? Look, it all depends on what the government does. If the government does the right thing and lets interest rates go way up, real estate prices are going to crash. If we have hyperinflation, they won't, at least in terms of dollars, but they will crash in terms of gold. So in that respect, I do believe that real estate prices will crash. It just depends on what form of money will they crash against, right? I think regardless of what happens, real estate prices will crash in terms of gold. But it remains to be seen whether they will crash in terms of dollars. Let me see. If gold retraces with the stock market on an election manipulation, do you think it will accumulate around 1,800? Look, I don't think gold's going back down to 1,800. I mean, it could. I mean, that's not that low. I mean, we could go down there. But look, I think gold at this point, it's been trading around 1,900. A little bit below, a little bit above. Remember, that was the peak. I mean, we got there briefly in 2011, and then we came crashing down. The fact that we're spending so much time trading at what used to be the all-time high, to me, is a very positive sign for the price of gold. The fact that it's not selling off from that high level. It's building a base here, and it's getting ready for the next leg up. The question is, what is going to be the catalyst for that leg? I thought the catalyst for that leg could be a Biden victory